I made nail charms using my dip powder, and I'm so excited to share with you just how easy it was. I don't know why I was so nervous to try it, but I am so happy with the way it turned out. And I used thermal dip powder, so these are actually thermal nail charms. So stick around and we'll get into this dip powder mani and how I create these thermal nail charms. So jumping right into this mani, I will be using my CN Designer Dips dip liquids. I actually end up using a gel base and top coat because of the charms, but I will be using the dip base and activator. And for the colors of this mani, I will be using this trio from the Crave collection. And I believe by the time I upload this video, this collection would have released. So I am an ambassador for CN Designer Dips. So these dips were gifted to me as a preview. But as always, you'll always get my honest opinion of the products I use. And I have to say, I am absolutely in love with this collection. So the first color I'm going to be starting off with is Peach Rings. And this is a thermal. It's the only solid. So of course, I'm going to start off with my solid first. I do actually want to dip in the jar. So I need to make it a little less full or else I'll make a mess. So I just dumped a little bit of that into my Chaos Gemerald just so I could have room in the jar to dip in. And then I also made sure that I stirred my powder well because I want to fluff it up a bit, especially with the thermal. They can be a little bit thicker. So I want to make sure that it's easier to dip into, that I don't create any wrinkling or buckling of my dip liquids. So that's why it helps to fluff up my powder. So I'm going in with my dip base. I'm applying a thin, even layer of dip base to my entire nail, and then I'm going to dip into Peach Rings. And so I'm going to tap off the excess powder, and then you can see it's this really pretty rosy kind of pinkish reddish color, but you can see how sensitive this thermal is. So as it's on my nail, you can see my nail bed color changing. So it was a bit warmer in my room, so that's the warm color that you see on my nail bed. So it's crazy how sensitive this was that I just dipped into it and then you could see that color change right before your eyes. I always think it's so much fun to work with thermals because of that. So this collection is actually what inspired me to make my own charms. So I have a bunch of silicone molds. I got them from like Daily Charm and Vettsy, and I've been wanting to use them, and I thought I'd use non-sticky builder gel, but I just haven't gotten around to it, and I was a little intimidated. I'm not really sure why, because they're molds, so it's probably hard to mess up. I don't know, but I was still a little worried. But when I saw this collection, the Crave collection, and it was gummy bears and peach rings, I just thought perfect because I have these molds that are like little gummy bears, like in all different sizes. And so I thought it was perfect to use that. So I wasn't sure. I mean, I thought in theory it should turn out, but I wasn't sure whether or not it would work. So I wanted to give it a try. Luckily it did, or else you may not be seeing this video. I actually really fell in love with this collection, not only because the colors are beautiful, because they are, and I love a good thermal, but because of the theme. So I think I mentioned this before, but gummy bears are my favorite food. I don't know if you can actually call it a food. Maybe I should just say it's my favorite snack, but I love gummy bears. So I'm more of a sweet tooth person rather than a savory person, and gummy bears are my go-to. So I am a very anxious traveler. So anytime I'm flying, I always have to have a bag of gummy bears with me. I don't know why. It's just kind of like my comfort food of I like to have gummy bears when I'm traveling. And I actually had a little mini candy bar at my wedding, and of course I had to have gummy bears on the bar. So I bought this huge bag of gummy bears off of Amazon. I think it was like a 5-pound bag, maybe even a 10-pound bag. But they were these Albanese gummy bears. I think that's how you pronounce them. If you haven't tried those gummy bears, they are my absolute favorite because I like the softer gummy bears because is it Black Forest? Something forest, and then there's the Haribo. They're all kind of like harder gummy bears, but I really like the softer ones. And these ones, the Albanese, are my absolute favorite. So that's actually what I had at my wedding. And all around the office at work, they have these baskets set up, and throughout the day, they'll come through and replenish snacks for everyone in the office. And they're usually healthier snacks, your sun chips and popcorn and pretzels and things like that. but every once in a while they will stock the baskets with these little small bags of Albanese gummy bears, and I love when they do that. And of course the whole office does, because everyone wants like the candy rather than the healthier food. So I actually love gummy bears so much. It became known how much I love these gummy bears, to where now anytime a coworker sees them stocked up, they will grab some and bring them to me. And I've been rambling about gummy bears, so apologies for that. Let me get back to what I'm actually doing for this mani. So I finished up 2 dips each of peach rings on my index finger and pinky, and then I want to go ahead and cap them in clear. This is my only solid, so I want to make sure that I don't contaminate my solids with any glitters, because I'm going to be using glitters next. So I'm going to cap them in clear, activate them, and that will prevent any stray glitters from sticking to the nails. And then you saw previously as well, that little bit of peach rings that I poured into my Chaos Gemerald, I went ahead and poured that back into the jar. So I love my Chaos Gemeralds because they're flexible, so I can kind of just fold them to a point where that spout is and just easily pour back the powder. Now the jars are so full, sometimes I can't get all the powder back in. I don't know how they fill them so full. So that's why you see me tapping the jar. I'm trying to level out the powder to fit more in. So once my dip base is fully dry, I'm going to make sure I scrub off that excess clear. So use a stiff scrub brush, and then I'm going to go ahead and activate my nails. So I'm going to apply a generous amount of activator to both those nails, and look at how quickly that color changed. I just wanted to pop in really quick to say, just look at that coverage of sour gummies. This is one dip and it is full coverage. I say it all the time, I'll say it again. The shimmers from 𝗚𝗜𝗡𝗡𝗬 Designer dips are just unreal. They are just packed full of shimmers and just so gorgeous. I do end up doing 2 dips of sour gummies just because that's my normal dipping process, but I could easily get away with 1 because the second dip definitely is not for coverage, because I get full coverage with just that 1 dip. The last color out of this trio I'm going to be using is Crave, and this is the glitter in the trio. So you've got a solid, a shimmer, and a glitter. And Crave is a really easy glitter to work with because it's smaller and medium glitters. There aren't any large glitter pieces. So this one is not intimidating if you're intimidated by glitters. But even though there aren't any larger glitter pieces, I am going to do my chunky glitter method for this. So I am taking a thin, even layer of dip base, making sure I'm covering my entire nail. And then once I've got that dip base down, for my first layer, I'm going to pour over the glitter. So I'm pouring into my Chaos Gemerald by Chaos Concepts, and I pour over because I want less of the larger glitter pieces. So I want to pick up more of the acrylic powder, smaller glitters, shimmers. It's okay if I get some of the larger glitter pieces, but I don't want a whole lot because I don't want my nails to be chunky. So once I've got that poured over, I'm going to make sure that I'm kind of pressing down, making sure there aren't any glitters sticking up, which there really weren't because they're smaller glitter pieces. If there's any that's overlapping over my skin, I may tuck them in a little bit. But for overall, really easy to do for my first layer. And then for my second, I went ahead and poured the rest of my jar into my Chaos Gemerald. I gave it a little bit of a shake just to bring some of those larger glitter pieces to the surface because they are heavier, so they will tend to sink. But for my second layer, I want to pick up more of those bigger pieces. So I'm applying my dip base to my entire nail. I dust it off camera, by the way. I always dust off excess powder. I just sometimes don't do it on camera. So I went ahead and applied my dip base. I'm laying my finger flat into the glitter, and that way I pick up more of the pieces. So when you pour over, you're going to pick up less of the larger pieces. So for my second layer, that's why I like to lay my finger flat in the glitter, just to get that good coverage. Now that I finished up my dips, I'm going to go ahead and cap everything in clear. So you can see I have two separate jars of clear. So I actually have the huge 4-ounce jar of the Ultra Clear 2020 by CN Designer Dips. So what I like to do is I like to split it between two smaller jars. And that way I have one jar for solids and one jar for glitters. And that way I don't contaminate my solid nails with any stray glitters. So when possible, I like to keep two separate jars of clear. So I'm going to be using my glitter clear to cap the rest of these nails in clear. So I'm going to do that. I'll activate File and Buff off camera, and then I'll be back and we can get into making the charms. I went ahead and filed and buffed off camera, so here's how the mani's looking, and now you can really see that thermal transition really well. So for the charms, here's the silicone mold I'll be using. I can't remember if I got it off of Daily Charm or Vettsy, but if I can find it, I'll leave the link for that down below in the description if you want to check it out. And for my gels, I will be using my CN Designer Dips HEMA-free gel base and gel top coat. So I'll use that for the charms as well as for top coating my nails. So I've got my resin palette from Resonating Crafts, RVA. I'm going to take a little bit of that gel base and add a dollop of that onto the resin palette. And then the first color I'm going to be using is Crave because not Crave, sorry. This is Sour Gummies. This is the heavy shimmer, and it's also a thermal because I want these thermal charms. So I'm just taking my little spoon and I'm just adding a little bit of powder to that wet gel base. Now I learned my lesson the last time. I don't want to pour from the jar or else I'll get too much powder. So I'm just using that spoon to do a little bit because you want to make sure that it's not too thick, but it's not too thin. So you really need to play with it to get that right consistency. So I'm picking up that gel mixture with my liner brush and I'm just lining the inside of that mold, and I'm using the smaller bear because I have smaller nails. You can use the larger ones depending on what size you want, but I'm just lining the bottom of that with a thin layer of this mixture. So I want to make sure there's enough color. I want to make sure that I'm filling in the details because there are kind of little bare details on there. So I want to make sure I'm getting all the gel in there into like the little crevices just to make sure I'm grabbing all those details and make sure also that I've got a good color to that because this is the heavy shimmer. So I do want it to look really pretty and shimmery as well. So once I feel like I have that good thin layer base down, I will continue to fill in just to make it a little more dimensional because I don't want it just flat. I do want it like a charm and more 3D. So I don't fill all the way to the top of the mold, but I do like maybe like half to 3/4 of the way to the top of that mold just to make sure I have enough dimension. And I did realize I didn't have enough of that mixture, so I'm just mixing a little bit more so I can continue to fill in that mold. So I actually end up doing 2 charms each of both the colors. So I use sour gummies and I also use peach rings, but I only show you one of each color just because I don't want to be too repetitive. But I'm just going to continue to fill in, and then once I've got the mold as filled in as I want, I'm going to give it a cure for a full 60 seconds. Just look at the thermal change from the heat of my lamp. How cool is that? I was so excited when I saw that this actually worked. Now, I wasn't sure whether the charm would be tacky because I used gel base for the mixture, so I didn't want to risk it and I didn't want to touch it, so I went ahead and used my nail art tweezers just to remove it from the mold. And I think I do it off camera, but I end up wiping it with a lint-free wipe and some isopropyl alcohol before I touch it, just in case. You can never be too careful when you're working with gels. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the same for peach rings. I've got my 4 charms done, but before I try to adhere them to my nails, I do want to apply a layer of gel base to my nails. So I'm going to apply gel base to all my nails, cure it for 30 seconds, and then I will move on to adhering them using my jewelry gel. And the reason I do gel base first is because my dip powder is really smooth. So I don't want the jewelry gel or the top coat to peel off my nails. So that will give them something tacky to adhere to.
Invincible.
I'm going to be using my iGel Beauty Jewelry Gel to adhere these charms because that's my favorite to use. It cures non-wipe and it's also super strong. It is very thick and stringy, so I actually like to use the dotting tool end of my rhinestone picker. So I pick up a dollop of that jewelry gel. I do kind of have to swirl it a little bit to get off some of that stringiness, and then I will apply a dollop of that onto where I want the charm to sit. So I'm going to do this for my 4 nails, so it's going to be on both my sour gummy and peach ring nails. I'm going to leave Crave just as a glitter nail. I'm not going to apply any charms to that, but I'm going to go ahead and apply my jewelry gel to the rest of my 4 nails where I plan to put the charm. Before I apply the charms, I haven't cured my jewelry gel yet. I'm going to go ahead and top coat those nails. So I'm going to top coat on top of the uncured jewelry gel. And what this does is it makes it easier so I don't have to top coat around the charm. However, having said that, I do this for gems because you don't want to top coat on top of gems because they kind of lose their blinginess. But because these are charms I made, I probably wanted them top coated, so I should have just waited and top coated everything all together. But anyway, regardless, that's the process I did. So now I'm taking my jewelry picker. I'm using the wax end to pick up the charm, and I'm doing opposite. So on my peach ring nails, I'm putting on the sour gummies bare. And so on the sour gummies nail, I'm going to put on the peach ring bears because I kind of want them to stand out a little bit more and not blend in as much. So I'm kind of doing the opposite, and I'm doing them one at a time. And another lesson learned for me, and this is, I don't know why I did it this way because I always do my thumbs separately. For some reason, I decided to go ahead and put the jewelry gel on my thumb as well. So if I would have cured my nails and then did my thumb, I would have cured the jewelry gel on there. So I had to go ahead and do all my nails at once.
responsible.
I went ahead and cured for a full 60 seconds, so now I'm ready to finish off my mani by rehydrating my cuticles with my Scales of a Mermaid cuticle oil. This is in the scent Takes Two to Mango, and this is, I believe, one of the first scents that I've got from Scales of a Mermaid, which kind of started my love of the company. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I rub that in really well, which it was kind of difficult with the charms. I'm not used to having charms on my nails. So here is the finished look. You can kind of see that transition state because it was warmer in my room. I know this was a little bit of a different video, so I wanted to show you a little bit more of the cold state. So here's a hack that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, but I went ahead and sprayed a little bit of isopropyl alcohol onto my nails because it is colder. So you can see it's starting to get a little bit colder, so you can see a little more of that thermal in action. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. It lets me know to continue creating content like this, and it also helps YouTube recommend me to others, which helps grow my channel. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I upload content every Monday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.